The industrial district never slept. Machinery hummed through the night, casting long shadows across the crumbling streets. 17-year-old Owen Mitchell pressed himself against a cold metal wall, trying to become invisible. He had learned this skill well over the past year since the factory accident took his father and left him with nothing but debts he could never pay. The colony administrators did not care about orphan workers. They cared about productivity and profit. When Owen could not pay rent on the company housing, they threw him out without hesitation. Now he lived in the spaces between buildings, surviving on discarded food and occasional odd jobs that paid just enough to keep him from starving. Tonight was colder than usual. Owen pulled his torn jacket tighter, feeling the wind cut through the thin fabric. His stomach had stopped growling hours ago, replaced by a dull ache that never quite went away. He clutched a half-eaten protein bar he had found behind a convenience store. It was 3 days past expiration, but food was food. Through the darkness, Owen heard something strange. Not the usual sounds of machinery or distant traffic, but something organic. Heavy breathing mixed with a wet coughing sound that echoed off the metal structures. Owen froze. Gang enforcers sometimes patrolled this area, and they had no patience for homeless vagrants. But this sound was different. Deeper. Almost animal-like. Curiosity overcame caution. Owen crept toward the source of the noise, moving carefully between the industrial containers that lined the street. What he saw made him stop breathing. She was enormous. Even crouched down behind a broken heating unit, she stood at least 9 feet tall. Her body was covered in scales that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue, catching what little light penetrated this forgotten corner of the colony. Massive wings lay folded against her back, tattered and torn in several places. Her face was long and elegant despite the obvious signs of suffering. Golden eyes with vertical pupils stared at nothing, unfocused with pain or exhaustion. Owen recognized her species immediately. Everyone in the colonies knew about the Drachmer. They were legendary warriors from the outer systems, fierce and proud. Their ships were feared across a dozen sectors. They took what they wanted and answered to no one. But this Drachmer looked nothing like the terrifying raiders from the stories. She looked broken. Her scales were dull and patchy. Her ribs showed through her sides with painful clarity. One of her wings had a deep gash that still oozed dark blood. She shivered despite her massive size, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Owen should have run. Every instinct screamed at him to get away from a creature that could tear him apart without effort. But something held him in place. Maybe it was the way she hunched over, trying to make herself smaller. Maybe it was the fear in those golden eyes. Or maybe it was the simple recognition of someone else who had nowhere to go and no one to help them. The dragon woman coughed again, a wet sound that spoke of serious injury. Owen saw her clutch at her side where the scales looked burned or damaged. She was dying. Slowly, painfully, alone in the industrial district where no one would find her until it was too late. Owen looked down at the protein bar in his hand. It was barely enough to sustain him for another day. Giving it away meant going hungry. But looking at the dragon woman, Owen realized she needed it more than he did. Before he could change his mind, Owen stepped out from behind the container. The movement caught her attention immediately. Her head snapped up and those golden eyes locked onto him with frightening intensity. Her lips pulled back to reveal rows of sharp teeth, and a low growl rumbled in her chest. Owen raised his hands slowly, showing he meant no harm. The protein bar was clearly visible in one hand. "I know you probably do not understand me," Owen said quietly, keeping his voice calm. "But you look like you need this more than I do." The dragon woman stared at him. Her growl faded into silence, replaced by confusion. She tilted her head slightly, studying this small human who approached instead of running away. Owen took a few careful steps closer. His heart hammered against his ribs, but he kept moving. When he was within arm's reach, he held out the protein bar. I am Owen, he said. I live here. Well, not here exactly, but around here. I know what it is like to be alone and hungry. I know what it is like when the whole galaxy seems to hate you. The dragon woman looked at the offering. Her eyes moved from the food to his face and back again. Owen could see her thinking, weighing her options. Pride fought against hunger. Suspicion battled with desperate need. Finally, slowly, she reached out. Her hand was massive with long fingers and curved black claws that could easily crush his skull. But when she took the protein bar, her touch was surprisingly gentle. She brought it to her mouth and ate it in 2 quick bites. Her eyes closed as she swallowed, and Owen saw a single tear roll down her scaled cheek. When she opened her eyes again, something had changed. The fear was still there, but so was something else. Recognition. Understanding. She spoke in a voice that sounded like distant thunder. The words were in her own language, harsh and rolling consonants that Owen could not understand. But the tone was clear. She was asking a question. Owen shook his head. I do not know your language. But I think I know what you are saying. The dragon woman studied him for another moment, then made a decision. She shifted her position, moving her massive tail to create a sheltered space against the heating unit. It blocked the wind and trapped what little warmth remained in the air. She gestured to the space with one clawed hand. Owen understood the invitation. He walked over and sat down in the protected area. The dragon woman carefully wrapped one wing around him, creating a barrier against the cold. Her body heat radiated through the damaged wing membrane, and for the first time in months, Owen felt warm. Thank you, he whispered. The dragon woman rumbled softly in response. She spoke again in her language, and this time Owen caught a word that sounded like her name. It was complex, with sounds his human throat could never produce properly. But one part stood out clearly. Thessera, Owen repeated, simplifying it. Is that your name? She nodded once, understanding that he was trying. Thessera, Owen said again, committing it to memory. That is beautiful. They sat together in the industrial darkness, 2 beings from different worlds united by shared suffering and a simple act of kindness. Owen did not know it yet, but this moment would reshape both their futures. Sometimes the most profound connections begin with the smallest gestures of compassion. Outside their shelter, the colony continued its endless cycle of work and commerce. But here, in this forgotten corner, something new was being born. Not just friendship, but family. Morning light filtered through the industrial haze as Owen woke to find Thessera still watching over him. She had not slept, or perhaps she had slept differently than humans did. Her golden eyes tracked every movement in the area, constantly alert for danger. Owen sat up slowly, feeling the stiffness in his muscles from sleeping on concrete. Thessera rumbled softly in greeting, a sound he was beginning to recognize as her version of good morning. We need to find you medical help, Owen said, looking at the wound on her side. In daylight, it looked even worse than he had thought. The scales around it were blackened and cracked, and the flesh beneath showed signs of infection. Thessera shook her head firmly. She pointed at herself, then made a slashing gesture across her throat. Owen understood. If she went to any official medical facility, they would either turn her away or arrest her. The Drakmar had no treaties with human colonies. She was technically an illegal alien, and an injured one at that made her even more vulnerable. Then I will help you, Owen said with determination. I used to work in the factory medical station before everything fell apart. I know basic first aid. Over the next few hours, Owen gathered supplies. He knew which shops threw away expired medical materials that were still usable. He knew which pharmacies had careless security systems. He was not proud of stealing, but survival required compromise. By afternoon, he had assembled a makeshift medical kit. Antiseptic, bandages, pain medication meant for humans but hopefully effective enough to help. Thessera watched him work with interest, her intelligent eyes following every movement. "This is going to hurt," Owen warned as he approached her wounded side. Thessera nodded understanding and braced herself. Cleaning the wound was difficult. Her scales were tough, and the damaged tissue beneath was resistant to human medicine. But Owen worked carefully, and Thessera remained still despite the obvious pain. When he finally wrapped the area with clean bandages, she released a long breath of relief. Over the following weeks, their routine developed naturally. Owen continued searching for work during the day, taking any job that would pay even a few credits. Thessera could not show herself openly, but she helped in other ways. Her strength and size made tasks easier. When Owen found temporary work moving heavy equipment, Thessera would wait nearby. If something was too heavy for human workers, Owen would signal her, and she would move it under cover of darkness. They communicated through gestures and simple words. Owen learned bits of Thessera's language, though his human vocal cord struggled with the complex sounds. She learned human words slowly, her accent thick but understandable. Their conversations were basic at first, but meaning flowed between them with increasing ease. One evening, as they shared a meal of salvaged food, Thessera spoke about her past. Her words were halting, mixed between her language and broken human speech, but Owen pieced together her story. She had been a warrior in the Drakmer fleets, serving her clan with honor. But during a raid on a mining outpost, she had refused orders to kill the workers. Her commander had wanted to eliminate witnesses. Thessera had seen the workers were unarmed civilians, including children. She had stood between her own people and the humans, refusing to move. Her clan had branded her a traitor. They had beaten her, burned her with plasma weapons, and left her for dead on this colony world. She had survived only through sheer will, hiding in the industrial district where no one looked too closely. "You saved them," Owen said quietly when she finished. "Those people at the mining outpost. You gave up everything to protect people you did not even know." Thessera looked away, shame in her eyes. In Drakmer culture, disobeying orders was the greatest dishonor. But Owen reached out and placed his hand on her scaled arm. "That was not weakness," he said firmly. "That was strength. Real strength. Anyone can follow orders. It takes courage to stand up when something is wrong." Thessera met his eyes, and Owen saw surprise there. Perhaps no one had ever told her that before. Perhaps in all her years as a warrior, no one had ever suggested that mercy could be a form of power. Their bond deepened after that conversation. They were not just survival partners anymore. They were friends who understood each other's pain and choices. 2 months after their first meeting, opportunity arrived in an unexpected form. A merchant named Captain Hendricks operated a small cargo transport business. He was known for hiring workers that other companies would not touch. People with records, people without papers, people who existed in the gray areas of colonial law. Owen approached him carefully one morning at the loading docks. "I hear you need workers," Owen said. Hendricks was a weathered man in his 50s with calculating eyes. "Maybe. You got experience? I can work hard and I am reliable. I also have a partner who can handle heavy cargo." "How heavy are we talking?" "Heavy enough that you would not need loading equipment." Hendricks raised an eyebrow. "This partner legal?" "As legal as half your crew," Owen replied evenly. Hendricks laughed at that. "Fair point. Bring them around tomorrow. We will see what they can do." The next morning, Owen brought Thessera to the docks before sunrise when few people were around. Hendricks took one look at her and went pale. "You brought a Drakmer warrior to my ship?" "I brought a hard worker who needs a job," Owen corrected. "She is stronger than any 3 humans combined, and she will not cause trouble." Hendricks studied Thessera carefully. She stood tall but non-threatening, her golden eyes steady and calm. Finally, he nodded slowly. "One trial run. You load the morning cargo. If it goes well, we talk about regular work. Thessera proved herself within the first hour. She lifted containers that normally required machinery, moving them with careful precision. Owen coordinated the loading, ensuring everything was secured properly. They worked together like they had been doing it for years. By midday, Hendricks was convinced. You are both hired. Standard pay, and I will register you under my company license. That gives you legal protection as contracted workers. Owen felt tears prick his eyes. Legal work meant steady income. It meant they could rent actual living space. It meant they could stop hiding. Thessera rumbled softly, a sound Owen had learned meant contentment. That evening, they moved into a small storage room Hendricks rented them above his warehouse. It was not much, just 4 walls and a roof. But it was theirs. They had beds and running water. They had a door that locked from the inside. As Owen lay down that first night in a real bed, he looked over at Thessera. She was curled up in the corner that she had claimed, her tail wrapped around herself. Her wounds were healing slowly but steadily. Her scales had regained some of their luster. We made it, Owen said quietly. We actually made it. Thessera opened one golden eye and looked at him. She spoke in her language, words that Owen had learned meant family and home. Yes, Owen agreed, smiling. We are family now. Outside, the colony continued its indifferent existence. But inside that small room, 2 outcasts had found something precious. They had found belonging. 6 months of honest work transformed both Owen and Thessera. Owen had gained weight and strength, his body filling out from regular meals. His confidence had grown as well. He managed entire loading operations now, coordinating between different ships and cargo types. Hendricks had promoted him to shift supervisor, which came with better pay. Thessera had changed even more dramatically. Her scales now gleamed with health, shifting between purple and blue depending on the light. Her wounds had healed, leaving only faint scars. She moved with renewed grace and power, no longer the broken creature hiding in the industrial district. Workers at the docks had grown accustomed to her presence. Some even greeted her by name. The colony itself had started changing its perception of Drakmer because of Thessera. People saw her working alongside humans, saw her carefully handling delicate cargo, saw her helping human workers who struggled with heavy loads. She was proof that the stories about her species were not the complete picture. Owen and Thessera had developed their own form of communication that mixed both languages. They could hold real conversations now, sharing thoughts and feelings beyond basic needs. In the evenings, they would sit on the roof of the warehouse and talk about everything from philosophy to the stars they could see through the industrial haze. Do you ever miss your people? Owen asked one night. Thessera was quiet for a long moment before answering. I miss what I thought they were. I miss believing we were honorable. But I do not miss what they truly are. You are more honorable than any of them, Owen said firmly. She rumbled her appreciation. You gave me that. You showed me different way to live. We showed each other, Owen corrected. You taught me that strength can be gentle. That power can protect instead of destroy. Their peaceful existence shattered on a humid evening in late summer. Owen was finishing paperwork in the warehouse office when alarms sounded across the colony. Not emergency alarms, but military notification signals. A ship was approaching that required special attention. Owen went to the window and felt his blood run cold. A Drakmer warship descended through the atmosphere, its dark hull bristling with weapons. It was larger than any ship that normally docked at the colony, clearly a military vessel. Thessera appeared beside him, her face grim. She stared at the warship with an expression Owen had never seen before. It was not fear exactly, but something deeper. Recognition mixed with old pain. You know that ship, Owen said quietly. My clan, Thessera replied, her voice tight. The Crimson Talon. The warship docked at the military section of the spaceport. Within an hour, Drachmer warriors were moving through the colony. They were not here for supplies this time. They were searching for something. Hendricks found Owen and Thessera in the warehouse. His face was worried. There are Drachmer warriors at the main gates asking questions about one of their own. They say a traitor was left here to die, and they have reports she might still be alive. They want me back, Thessera said flatly. To finish what they started. Can we hide you? Owen asked desperately. Where? Thessera gestured around them. I am not small. And they will search everywhere. They are Drachmer. They do not give up. Then we fight, Owen said. You are one human boy. They are trained warriors. I am not just one boy. I am your family. And families protect each other. Before Thessera could respond, the warehouse doors burst open. 3 Drachmer warriors entered, their scales gleaming crimson in the overhead lights. They wore armor that spoke of countless battles, and their eyes held the cold certainty of professional killers. The leader was slightly smaller than Thessera but moved with predatory confidence. His scales were scarred from old fights, and when he smiled, his teeth seemed even sharper than normal. Thessera the betrayer, he said in the Drachmer language, which Owen had learned enough to understand. You survived. Impressive. But your suffering ends today. My name is Thessera the Free, she replied, standing tall. I am no longer part of your clan. You were born to the Crimson Talon. You will die as Crimson Talon. That is our law. Owen stepped forward, placing himself between the warriors and Thessera. The leader looked down at him with amusement. A human pet? You have fallen far, traitor. She is not a traitor, Owen said, his voice steady despite his fear. She is the bravest person I know. She stood up for what was right when none of you would. Right? The leader laughed. We are Drachmer. We take what we want. We conquer and rule. That is right. That is just being bullies with better weapons, Owen shot back. Real strength is protecting people, not hurting them. Thessera knows that. She is stronger than all of you. The leader's amusement faded. You dare lecture me, human child? I have killed enemies across 3 systems. And she saved lives across those same systems by refusing to follow your cruel orders, Owen countered. Which of you will be remembered with honor when you are gone? The warrior moved with frightening speed, his clawed hand reaching for Owen's throat. But Thessera was faster. She grabbed her former comrade's wrist and twisted, forcing him to release Owen. Enough, Thessera growled. Your fight is with me, not him. The leader rubbed his wrist, respect entering his eyes for the first time. You still have fire, traitor. Good. Then face me in ritual combat. If you win, we leave you in peace. If you lose, you return to the clan to face judgment. And if I refuse? Then we burn this entire warehouse with everyone inside. Your human friends die because you are too coward to fight. Thessera's eyes blazed with anger, but Owen saw her weighing the options. If she refused, innocent people would suffer. If she fought and lost, she would face torture and execution. But if she fought and won, they would finally be free. I accept, Thessera said. But we fight fairly. No weapons, no armor. The leader smiled coldly. Agreed. Tomorrow at sunset, in the old arena. All the colony can watch as I show them what happens to those who betray the Drachmer. The warriors left as suddenly as they had arrived. Owen turned to Thessera, fear and determination warring in his chest. You can beat him, Owen said with more confidence than he felt. He is Corvin the Merciless, Thessera replied quietly. He earned that name through many victories. He has never lost ritual combat. Then he has never fought someone who had something worth fighting for, Owen said firmly. You are not fighting for glory or honor. You are fighting for your freedom. For your life. For our family. That makes you stronger. Thessera looked at him, and slowly, her expression softened. You truly believe that? I know it. Tomorrow, you show him and everyone else what real strength looks like. That night, neither of them slept much. Thessera moved through combat forms that Owen had never seen, preparing her body for the fight ahead. Owen researched everything he could find about Drachma ritual combat, looking for any advantage or weakness they could exploit. As dawn approached, Owen found Thessera standing on the warehouse roof, looking at the stars. He joined her in silence. If I lose, Thessera began. You will not lose. But if I do, I want you to know something. These months with you have been the best of my life. You showed me kindness when you had nothing to give. You saw me as a person when I had forgotten how. Whatever happens tomorrow, you saved me in ways that have nothing to do with food or shelter. Owen felt tears on his cheeks. You saved me too. Before we met, I was just surviving. You taught me how to live. You taught me that family is not about blood. It is about choice. They stood together watching the sunrise, two beings from different worlds bound by something stronger than species or culture. Tomorrow would test everything they had built together. But tonight, they had each other, and that would have to be enough.